So this is Baruch Fleischman. Today is Wednesday afternoon. It's the day of Netzach. As we're getting closer to the close of the day, we want to come over here and get a chance to learn the Zohar on the parsha of the week. Now, this parsha is quite long, so we're moving around and seeing some different ideas. We're in Parshas Vayera. You see up at the top in the Matok B'Devash, which we encourage everyone to buy the set. Invest some money. Get the set, put it in your synagogue, put it in your house. Get 2 of them, get 3 of them. They need to be moved around because they themselves, these books just by themselves, are tremendous power of Kedusha. So we're on page Taf Ayin Zion. We're at the bottom of the page. And let's go over here. Let me see if I can bring this down a little bit more so we can see it more closely. So the Zohar says like this. The Matik has an intro, and he says, Chosa the Inyan of Parsha. Let's go back to our Parsha Vayera. Masha Shalach HaMelachim. Why is it that the Melachim are the subject of the Melachim who asked Avraham, Aye Sarah Ishtacha, where is Sarah, your wife? So the Matik writes, Rak Achre Achla V'lo Miyad Bavoim. They said this after they had eaten, not when they immediately came. The low boy lomer kama. The vishalo rotzel lomer basuros, because they are basura, it's just one basura. They didn't want to come and make this announcement lefanecha before you, before him, before Avraham. Kodim sha'erek Avraham chasauda lefanecha, before Avraham had laid out the table and put the banquet down in front of them. Ba'achar achlam, and then after they ate, Miyad shol also aye Sarah ishtacha. So that's when they asked, where is Sarah, your wife? And then he said, well, she's in the tent. Miyad v'yomer shuv ashuv alecha ke'es chaya. I will come now back again at the time. This is an interesting frame, ke'es chaya, that at a time of life. Ben the Sarah, and there will be a son for Sarah ishtach. Miyad. Basruhu as Basura Hazera, Basuras Hazera. So now they let him know the truth, or that's not the word, the announcement, that he was going to have a child, Zerah. Before Shasa'inyan V'Omer. Now we want to explain this and say like this. Tachazi, Orach Arva, the normal way for people. Bovarei Hilchos Derek Eris, the right way to do things. The Hadalo Azmin Avraham Kamaichel Lemeichel Lo Amar Lemedi. Before he invited them, they didn't say anything to him. Before the time came when Avraham prepared the food before them so that they should be able to eat. Lo Amar Lo Klum. They didn't say anything to Avraham. Begin to Lo Yischaze, the begin Haku Basura, Ka Azmin Lahu Lamechel. So they didn't want it to appear. Let me read the matok. Kadei shelo yisrael ba'avkur habasura hu mazme b'sam na'achol. So that they didn't want to appear that the reason why he was doing this chesed for him was because they were telling him something good and he's giving it to them as a reward. And here comes the matok to explain further. Ritzon lomar she'ilu basuros kodem achilasan, that if the announcement was before they ate, it would be like he wasn't really doing a good deed with them. But he gave them to eat when they finished and they had passed through. Now they came and they said the announcement. So therefore this reason the Melachim waited until they finished eating, so that they, in fact, their eating will be according to the thinking of Avraham and the flow of the bracha of Avraham, where would be a gemilas chesed, that he would be doing a chesed for them. He had no idea of what they were going to say. Then after that it says, and they ate. And then only after they ate, that's when he gave them this announcement. Then he gave them the announcement of the pending birth of Yitzchak Avinu. Now let me see what I can do, because the The page is getting a little blurry, and I think you can get it back that way. How do I get it a little bit cleaner? I don't know. Let's go on, and I'll try a little tilting. That helped. Hey, that helped. So it says like this. V'shal masha kaza v'yochelu. Now, I ask a question like this. What did the Zohar mean when it says, or the Torah says, what does the Torah mean when it says that they ate? Did you ever think that Melachim eat? That you think you're taking an entity which is spiritual and really only has the appearance of a form, that is going to eat like, like a human being? At the beginning, Yikar the Avraham is chazichachi, but it's because of the honor of Avraham, to honor him. That's how they appeared like this, and that's what they did. Ela b'shum kavodu shel Avram. Only because of the honor of Avraham, they wanted to show hoyin nirik ilu achlo. They allowed it to appear as if they were eating. Rabbi Lozer says to this idea, he said, "V'yochlu v'adai." They did in fact eat. It wasn't that they appeared to eat; they ate. Heim achlu mamish. They really ate. So then the Matuk wants to explain this. Well, if you're Malach, he had a good question at first. How is the Malach eat? It's not physical. For the real purpose of eating. Why do we eat? So this is something we should always be thinking about. I would say that I'm as guilty as not thinking about things that are really important at the time of eating. He says that because the purpose of eating, is really to pull out the kedusha that is within the food. Translation: they also did the same job. They did the job of being mavara, the kedusha that was prepared to them by Avraham. And he says, Heim asa bira mufla, a wondrous bira. That is a refinement out of the kedusha, out of this food. V'nizonim mechelek haruchni, and they were able to sustain themselves, in other words, to feed themselves, from the spiritual portion shalamaychel of the kedusha, that Michael shenasa lahem Avraham, that Avraham gave them. V'hamosros, then what about the rest of it? What about the part that's not any good? Sarful, they burnt them. Now, this is a little bit hard for me to picture, because I'm thinking of that this is at least an image of two human beings that are eating by Avraham, and they put the food in their mouths, and he said, according to Rebbe Elazar, they actually did eat it. So now we have to understand, what did they do with the part that wasn't kadosh? Because in the eating process, the Zohar is saying that the refining, which we should be doing also, we should have this kavanah in our mind, that what we're trying to do is eat till we reach the kedusha of the food. But the part that's not kadosh of the food, sarful, they burned it. Now how do they do that? V'kol v'gamri, it is completely and totally destroyed. V'lo nehenu misham hakitzonim klal. So that, let's understand the words, that when there is pleasure from physicality, this is all outside things. These are all physical things. Am I beautiful? Did I eat enough? Was it satisfying enough? All of these kind of things I have to do with physicality. But they burnt that part, because he said, let me read it again. He says, sarfu v'kalu l'gamri, they destroyed it, they burnt it, they destroyed it completely, and it did not allow the thoughts of Gashmias to have anything to do with it at all. So then the question is, what does the word eating mean? So they're not really eating, they're refining out kedusha, and they're throwing away or burning the rest. So he said, well, let's look at it. The word uviachlo, which means to eat, he come over to achla eish, like, for example, that the fire consumes the coals and the wood. So begin the ilon esha, the achol esha, because malachim, these malachim, it's just very interesting, and I just want to make a little thought about this, because these are malachim that eat fire. They're fire-eating fire themselves. Let me get these words. begin the Inun Esha, the Achol Esha, the Fi Shamalachim Haim Esho Chelas Esh. They are a fire that consumes fire. Well, with the fire of fires. Now, if you know anything about the other shiurim we do, we understand that fire is din. So here are these Melachim coming to tell Avraham that Sarah is going to have a child in the next year, and they are Melachim of din. But then again, these Melachim leave Avraham after this, and they come to destroy Sodom. So we see exactly how it is that they are, in fact, destroying angels. So if that energy of destruction is within them, then how do we understand that in terms of making this announcement about Sarah? You mean? V'lo ischaze, v'lo nish'ara she'eris afilu getzatz ke'efer an ka'af ke'efer hanoisim in asreifa, and everything that they had, that they ate, that had physicality to it, or that could be some enjoyment from it, because these are malachim, it became into dust, like the ashes of a fire. V'kol ma the yalhiv lom Avraham achli. They ate absolutely everything that Avraham gave him. V'kol ma shenasa lehem Avraham achlu. Begin to besitra the Avraham achlu la'elo. Because why? From the side of Avraham Avinu, they ate from up above. Now, what does that mean? Avraham represents the right line. That is the line of the arm. Avraham is chesed. That is the place of chesed. Achlu lamala, up in the upper worlds, that is what the eating is. Now, what does that mean? He said, Ratzon lama the visha achlu mimazon Avraham. They ate from the food of Avraham. But that's the Avraham hatachton. That's Avraham who walks around in the world of Asiya. Heim nizona b'shefa Avraham ha'elyon, but they actually got all of their substance from the Avraham, which is the spiritual part of Avraham, which is way deep inside of Avraham the person, Shua Chesed, which is Chesed. Anyway, that's the shir here for today in the Zohar on Parshas Vayera. This is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. Thank you very much for listening.